Hey everyone, today we're diving into the plot of the 2014 American comedy Behaving Badly. For a guy named Rick, the day begins in the worst possible way. He discovers his mom Lucy unconscious on the couch. Judging by the pills she consumed and the alcohol she washed them down with, it's clear she attempted to quickly end her time in this gloomy world. Rick instantly called emergency services and noticed numerous letters scattered around. In one of them, Lucy wrote that she knew about Rick's affair with her best friend. He assumed this devastating revelation pushed her over the edge. We're then transported back into Rick's memories, to the beginning of this exciting and chaotic story. It turns out that Lucy was an alcoholic who constantly talked about divorcing her husband, while paying virtually no attention to her children's lives. Rick also had a sister named Kristen who made her living dancing in clubs. Soon after, their father Joseph arrived at the scene. The man tried to act concerned and fatherly, but in reality, he was only interested in retrieving a videotape of questionable content, after which he immediately took off without a second thought. Later on, Rick visited Jimmy, the owner of the strip club where Kristen worked. Jimmy gave Rick a task to track down a dancer who hadn't shown up for her shift. Rick found her at home, but the girl wasn't particularly eager to come to work, so she gave Rick a little favor in exchange for him saying she was sick. Next, Rick headed to his buddy Billy's place. At the entrance, he was greeted by Billy's hot mom, Mrs. Bender, who clearly had a thing for him. Billy barely had time to leave for the store before his mother seduced Rick, and they ended up making love. The next day, Rick and Billy talked about Rick's longtime crush Nina, whom he had secretly loved since elementary school, but still hadn't worked up the nerve to speak to. Unexpectedly, a guy named Carlos interrupted their conversation and bet Rick that he couldn't make Nina his girlfriend within 2 weeks. Rick, being impulsive, accepted the challenge and bet $1,000. But soon he realized all the potential consequences of this rash decision. The issue was that Carlos was the son of a powerful gangster, and if Rick lost the bet and couldn't pay, he might lose more than just his fingers. That's when Saint Lola appeared to Rick. She was known for helping troubled teens and showed up during difficult moments. She motivated Rick and assured him he could win Nina's affection and make her his girlfriend. Later, Rick heard that Nina had just broken up with her boyfriend Kevin, the perfect signal to act. During Latin class, the teacher suddenly passed away, presumably to better study this dead language. The students were given a day off to honor the deceased, and Rick used this opportunity to invite Nina to the teacher's funeral. The girl agrees, but exactly at the moment when her ex approaches them, probably just to spite him. The next day, they were sitting in Rick's mom's car, listening to music, when Nina heard a Josh Groban song and admired the performer. Rick, trying to impress her, couldn't think of anything better than to lie and say he knew Josh personally, and even had backstage passes. Nina, naturally excited, begged him to take her to the show. Suddenly, their car was rear-ended by a priest and some nuns. The Holy Father apologized profusely to Rick and begged him not to call the police, offering to fix the car for free in return. Now Rick had to somehow score concert tickets and backstage passes. He turned to Jimmy for help, who agreed, but for a price. Rick had to pick up some prohibited substances from a local dealer, which he managed perfectly, even pocketing a few fun pills for himself. He also needed a car for the concert, so he approached Mrs. Bender for hers. The woman agreed, but only in exchange for another intimate favor. The next day, when Rick showed up to collect the car, Mrs. Bender insisted he take Billy with him. They headed off and stopped by Jimmy's for the tickets, only to be completely conned. It turned out that Jimmy had simply tricked Rick and then slammed the door in his face. Nina ran up, urging the boys to hurry so they wouldn't miss the concert. But then Billy spotted Rick's dad's car. Curious, they heard moans and peeked inside, and were shocked to see both their fathers entertaining themselves with an easily accessible girl. This unexpected discovery ruined their concert plans, but actually helped Rick resolve the awkward situation with Nina. He apologized for the ruined evening, but to his surprise, she wasn't upset at all. She actually had a great time. The next day at school, a new Latin teacher was introduced, and immediately died at the very beginning of the lesson. Rick and Billy were called to the principal's office for betting on whether the teacher was dead or just asleep. The principal was ready to punish them until they blackmailed him with a compromising photograph from the girls' locker room. He quickly changed his tune and let them go. Back home, Rick talked to the mechanic fixing his mom's car. It turned out the repairs would take another week, but Rick could borrow any available car in the shop. Without hesitation, he grabbed an Aston Martin and had a blast cruising with Nina and Billy until they were pulled over by the police. As it turned out, the luxury car belonged to a sinister Lithuanian mobster who terrorized 3 entire counties. During the interrogation, the cops revealed that the mechanic's corpse had been found in the trunk of Lucy's car. He was a key witness in the mob case. Just as Rick was about to be named a suspect, a lawyer burst in, sent by the priest, to help. Under her guidance, they fabricated a story that Rick's dad was actually the mob boss, since he coincidentally ran a business in Vilnius. Rick was released and drove the lawyer home. Along the way, she found the fun pills, mistook them for headache medication, and took one. She became quite uninhibited and invited Rick in, but he realized he was genuinely in love with Nina and drove away. Back at home, Rick walked in on a bachelorette party Kristen had thrown with her stripper friends. This gave him an inspiration: organize a one-night home strip club to earn enough money to pay Carlos in case things with Nina fell apart. He pitched the idea to Kristen and the girls. They all enthusiastically agreed. Suddenly, Mrs. Bender crashed the party and tried to seduce Rick again. They sneaked off to the kitchen, where things got intense, until Billy walked in on them. Shocked and speechless at the scene he witnessed, Billy froze. Rick begged him to take his mother to another room so she wouldn't ruin their money-making plan. To handle the situation, Rick called Jimmy and invited him to the party. The night kicked off and was a huge success. The guys made substantial money. Eventually Jimmy showed up, and Rick sent him to distract Mrs. Bender. Then, to Rick's surprise, Nina arrived, worried after hearing about his arrest and wanting to make sure he was okay. They sneaked off for a heartfelt conversation and finally got close, getting to know each other better. Just as they were about to share their first kiss, Mrs. Bender burst into the room, followed shortly by the actual Lithuanian mob boss. Complete chaos erupted. Nina discovered Rick's affair with Billy's mom. Furious, she stormed out, and outside she also overheard about Rick's bet with Carlos. Meanwhile, police and journalists who had gotten wind of the illegal home strip club and the mob confrontation swarmed the house. Absolute mayhem broke loose, during which many were arrested, including Nina and Billy. Rick got lucky and avoided jail. The next day, he visited Nina and Billy at the police station. Nina confessed she had genuine feelings for him too, but after everything that happened, she wanted nothing to do with him anymore. Back home, Rick received a call from his father, who was now languishing in a Lithuanian prison thanks to Rick's fabricated story. Realizing how far he'd fallen, Rick went to church to confess. He poured his heart out, but when he mentioned Mrs. Bender, the priest completely lost his composure since he himself had been intimately involved with Billy's mom. After church, Rick met with Mrs. Bender and tried to break things off for good. She agreed, but made it clear she would always be there for him. Then Rick headed to the hospital to see his mom. Thinking she had passed away, he began to cry and apologize, but it turned out she was just moved to another bed. Lucy forgave him, and they finally had a genuine heart-to-heart conversation. She assured him that he could still fix all his mistakes, and Rick took this advice to heart. Just then, Carlos showed up. Rick still owed him the money from the lost bet. Carlos raised a sledgehammer but didn't strike. Instead, he declared that anyone who gave his fearsome father a headache automatically became his friend. Rick visited the lawyer again, asking her to help free Billy from jail. Since he was broke, he agreed to become her assistant. After Billy was released, Rick returned to the hospital. On his way in, he didn't notice Nina working part-time at the front desk. Rick managed to arrange for Kristen's admission to Stanford and filed divorce papers for his mom so she could finally move on from the past. He was methodically fixing his life one step at a time. As he left the hospital, Rick almost got hit by a car and saw Nina standing there. She had overheard his conversation with his family and realized he wasn't such a bad guy after all. Rick sincerely apologized and confessed his feelings. Then they kissed, and this time, she enthusiastically kissed him back. We're done for today, folks. If you liked the video, hit the like button, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more.